Hello, distinguished friends and colleagues. This is Stuart Hamilton, the Pro-Life Activities Coordinator for the Archdiocese of Louisville, Kentucky, serving under Deacon Stephen Bowling. And this is 5 Minutes for Life, where we take 5 minutes to discuss one topic, one ministry, or one event that affects the pro-life movement here in the Archdiocese of Louisville. Before we get started, I want to mention that if you're used to watching one video a month on my monthly newsletter, you should be aware that I'm recording more like one video a week or two videos a week throughout the summer because there's so much news that's happening. So if you like what I do here, please hit like, please hit subscribe on this video and the notification bell to know when I'm putting out new content so you can stay updated and update others. Well, without further ado, the video today is about the fallout from the Dobbs versus Jackson decision, particularly when it comes to the Kentucky State trigger law. We're going to be talking a lot about that. I hope all of you will remember for decades exactly where you were and what you were doing when you heard the Dobbs versus Jackson court case had been decided and Roe v. Wade is overturned. I hope you know, I certainly do. I had a phone call from a friend that said they're turning people away down at the abortion clinic. That was so amazing. Now, that's not the case now, as we're going to discuss. The abortion clinic is back open. We're going to discuss why that is in a moment. But for 2 days, it was closed. And pretty immediately, there was a protest here in downtown Louisville at the courthouse. Lots of people showed up. But fortunately for us, the protest did not get out of hand like it did in New York and California. Those protests kind of devolved. There's been a lot of private property destroyed, pregnancy resource centers, Catholic churches being vandalized. But here, I've talked to some of our pregnancy resource centers. They've done their due diligence and they've done everything they need to protect the women that come there that need their services as well as their employees. And thanks be to God, as of this video, there's been no out of the ordinary activity. Okay, so that's going well. I should also mention the day right after Dobbs versus Jackson was handed down, Right to Life Louisville had a great event, Life Fest. Now, I went to Life Fest with my family, and it was geared towards families and celebrating life. I didn't know what to expect. I'll be honest, I was a little intimidated there would be protesters, but there weren't any. Thanks be to God, to the common sense of Kentuckians once again. We had a great time. That event was terrific. There were inflatables. There was a petting zoo where you could feed the animals. There was music and booths that were showcasing all the pro-life ministries. I'm going to tell you what, Right to Life Louisville did a terrific job. And if we're going to change hearts and minds, it's by the celebration of life and celebration of family that's actually going to come about. So I want to thank Right to Life Louisville, and I hope it's an annual event. Now, let's talk about what's happened in terms of Kentucky state law. Kentucky has had a trigger law on the books that the Congress and the legislation voted on back in 2019. This trigger law was to go into effect should Roe v. Wade ever be overturned. Well, it did go into effect the minute Roe v. Wade was overturned, but unfortunately, as I warned, lawyers from Planned Parenthood and the ACLU swarmed down. They filed for an injunction, and unfortunately, a judge granted that injunction, basically saying that we're going to hold off on that trigger law because their argument is that the trigger law is against the Kentucky State Constitution. You might say, I don't understand. Congress voted on this. Well, there's all sorts of legislation, pro-life legislation that the Congress has voted on and put into law that's wrapped up in the appeals process because the ACLU and Planned Parenthood is basically arguing that there is a right to abortion in the Kentucky State Constitution. Now, what they're hoping is eventually they'll be able to argue their case to the Supreme Court here in the state of Kentucky, the Kentucky State Supreme Court, and they'll have a victory somewhat like Roe v. Wade, only on the state level. That's their ultimate goal. But until then, this judge has granted this injunction to keep the law from going into effect. Now, our Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, has filed into the appeals process. He's being aided by Kentucky Right to Life, and the Catholic Conference of Kentucky. They've been doing their due diligence and working on the appeals process. And I hear that there's an important appeals case coming up on July 18th. So please pray and fast for the appeals process, that the trigger law may be allowed to take effect as it was intended to legally, and that no shenanigans come in from activist judges. But what can you do to help this? Well, first of all, prayer, prayer, prayer. A terrific, terrific way to pray is to pray with the helpers of God's precious infants. Now, they meet at the cathedral at 7 a.m. every second Saturday. As a matter of fact, this Saturday, July 9th, the helpers of God's precious infants are meeting at 7 a.m. They're going to have Mass, then they're going to process down to the abortion clinic and pray. And since the abortion clinic is still open, we need you out there in force. We need your prayers, because this is not merely an issue that is a political issue. This is about spiritual warfare. And if we're ever going to really end this, we need to pray. That being said, there is a secondary thing you can do. I've been tooting this horn quite a bit lately, but ladies and gentlemen, we need you to show up on November 8th to vote on that separate ballot initiative, initiative number 2, which will place an amendment to the Kentucky State Constitution saying that there cannot be read a right to abortion into our Constitution. It is a one-line amendment. It's very simple, and it is not tied to Democrat or Republicans. It is bipartisan, but we need people to show up, because the other side of this debate, pro-choicers, pro-abortion advocates, are very motivated to show up and vote against this amendment. So we need you to get your neighbors, to get involved, to go to your parishes and promote this amendment to the Kentucky State Constitution, and we need you to show up on November 8th to vote for it. So that's what you can do. You can pray, and you can show up on November 8th and vote for this Kentucky State amendment that will cut the legs off of the legal argument that the ACLU and Planned Parenthood are making. Well, that's all I've got for you today, folks. My next video, I'm probably going to move on to other things. We've got some really great projects coming up from the Family Renewal Project that I'll probably talk about in my next video. But until then, remember, human life is worth fighting for, because every human life is precious in the eyes of God. God bless you, and we'll see you here in my next video. Bye-bye.